All right, it's the KwinnPop Podcast. I'm Peter Dawson.
I'm James Bullock.
And we are here to talk about video games, television, and movies. How you doing today, James?
You know what, Peter? I'm actually feeling pretty émouvant today. For those who don't know, that's soulful in Spanish. And I have a reason why I'm talking in Spanish today to say soulful. Why is that, Peter?
I don't know why.
Well, because of Sony. Sony in Paris.
But Spanish isn't the language of Paris.
What are you talking about? Émouvant is French.
Oh. I genuinely didn't know where you were going with this. That was an adventure for me as much as it was for anyone who's listening to this.
I'm a pair of adventurers. I'm adventurous for a good reason today as well.
Yeah, no, that's true. Oh, good Lord. Anyway.
Oh, Lordy.
So, as we record this, Paris Games Week has pretty much just wrapped up, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all done. And one of the things that really caught our attention, because it ended up being pretty big, was the Sony press conference at the Paris Game Show.
Or as Sony referred to it, E3 Part 2.
Yeah, and it really kind of was, because they announced some new stuff, and they showed off some new footage for various projects, including some stuff that we kind of thought we were going to see at E3 that we didn't. Some of it was understandable. Like, they did show off the Final Fantasy 15 Ignis trailer, which, I mean, that's not coming until December, so it's understandable. Right. They would have showed that now.
They will show that now.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. But we also got some brand spanking new stuff, so we're going to go through a few of our... Like, there was a lot, so we're going to kind of focus on personal highlights. So if you think we missed something, we may very well have. We just kind of decided it wasn't ultimately worth talking about in our humble opinion.
Just feel free to put your rage out in the comments below.
Yeah, I'm sure the comments on YouTube or on KwinnPop, it's all good. So, James, do you want to start with one of your picks? I've got a few picks, of course.
Well, I know one of them that I am really interested in that maybe you weren't thinking about was Guacamelee 2. That came out as a free PlayStation Plus game about a couple of years ago, and I played it on PS4, and I really loved it. It's a platformer based around a farmer dying and becoming a professional wrestler from the afterlife. Like, it's just really wacky and very heavily influenced by the Latino culture, and I really enjoyed it. It's just a standalone, it's a hybrid 2D brawling platformer, which I really enjoyed. I put a lot of time into it, actually. I was shocked that I think it was like 14 hours or so to beat the game and didn't do everything in it. So it was a very hefty game, so I'm really looking forward to seeing what Guacamelee 2 is going to offer, because they left it a little bit open at the end. But, yeah, they gave you a really harrowing experience for the first one, so I'm really excited for Guacamelee 2.
That's good, yeah. That's definitely... I remember playing it, but I honestly, it's been a while, so... It's good. It is good that they're making another one. The first one was pretty good. And what was another one?
Oh, God of War. Man, that thing looked good. And this was one of the first time we've seen, like, full... just gameplay footage. It wasn't a whole bunch of cutscenes. It wasn't an origin story to a certain extent. It was just full, over-the-shoulder, third-person, high-action God of War gameplay that they're doing for this iteration. The only thing I noticed coming off of the video, which I think might be an overall theme when it comes to this style that they're going to implement, is the fact compared to like the original God of Wars, I don't think we're going to have like a whole bunch of enemies on screen at one time, because it's just not feasible. But I think that's kind of disappointing when you think about the God of War series. You kind of think about fighting 20, 30, 50 enemies at one time. And not having that is kind of a little bit of a kick in the old Kratoses.
It's got a little less Dynasty Warriors, a little more Shadow of the Colossus.
Yeah.
Or maybe a little more Uncharted, I don't know. I kind of got that, like, that was one of the things when I saw the trailer for God of War that kind of got me, was the fluidity of, like, the scripted events with just gameplay. Like, it seemed to flow really, really naturally, like, very much like Uncharted does.
Yeah, I believe they said there's going to be, like, a one-cut deal where everything that you see during cutscenes is actually in-game models, so it just flows all together.
Yeah, that's good. It'll help keep everything consistent, and it's stylish. Anything else you wanted to add for that one?
Not really. Like I said, I'm looking forward to seeing how it turns out. It's just, like I said, I missed that idea of having Kratos just wiping out hordes of enemies at one time. But who knows? They might be saving that for later. Like, that'll be a first-time experience for everybody that cranks up the game.
Yeah, it should be good. So this was a new one that was really interesting that I really wanted to talk about. It's from Sucker Punch, who did the Infamous games and the Sly Cooper games. I'm a big fan of the Infamous games. I'm kind of sad that we haven't gotten another one announced or anything like that, but now we know what they've been working on instead. And like I said, I've quite enjoyed the Infamous games. So if it's anything even remotely like that, I should be on board with it. It's called, I want to get the name right here, Ghost of Tsushima?
That's what I've been hearing more. So I've seen a couple people say Tsushima, but I think it's Tsushima.
It's a T. I'm pretty sure it's a TS.
Right. So
it's a
T should be silent.
Yeah, it's like when you say General Tsao or whatever. Yeah, and it looks to be a samurai open world game. Yeah,
it was a marvelous looking trailer, and I can't say that I'm not excited about it. You're, like you said, a big fan of the Infamous games. I was kind of in between. I enjoyed them, but I wasn't the biggest fan of them. I actually liked, I think, Second Son a little bit more than a lot of people did.
I liked it.
Yeah, I know you did, but I think a lot of people just felt it was a little bit of a it was obviously a downgrade on certain aspects compared to the first two Infamouses. But, I am really excited to see what they offer with this. I have no idea where they're going. It's obvious that we're not necessarily, at this point, going with a more superhero-laden idea, so I'm really intrigued to see how this turns out.
It's kind of funny, too, because, been a sort of decline of samurai games recently. Like, we haven't had a Way of the Samurai game since 2011.
Right.
We have gotten some Samurai Warriors games, of course, from Koei, but that's really the biggest franchise I can think of off the top of my head. Still samurai-based. We still haven't gotten that Assassin's Creed in Japan game yet, so...
Yeah, that everybody's been begging for really since Assassin's Creed 2?
Yeah, we kind of got one set in China, which was cool, which was one of the games they were begging for, but...
Everybody's wanting feudalistic Japan right now. We haven't gotten it, so...
Yeah, we want more ninjas running on rooftops. We want more samurai duels. We want more... I can't think of a third thing off the top of my head. Bamboo sword fights. Let's go with that.
We want more Tenchi.
Yeah.
Tenchi was awesome. Yeah. Tenchi was awesome. That's what we want.
Yeah, so the one thing with Ghost is we didn't see any actual gameplay. It was just kind of a cinematic trailer, which is all fine and good, but you do want to eventually see some gameplay. But this was the first trailer. This was the announcement, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, this is the first time anybody's seen it or heard about it outside of the people that are actually making it. So
yeah,
this was a big unveil.
It was a dark trailer, though, but it's kind of a theme for Paris.
Yeah, it's very odd that they really went dark. We consider that this is supposed to be like E3 Part 2 for Sony. They really went morbid with this sequence of unveilings, especially coming toward the end of the conference.
Well, I think they're really feeling the death of Chester Bennington, and they decided to listen to the more dark Linkin Park songs.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe that's what happened.
Maybe.
Rest in peace.
Yes.
I'd make a joke, but just seriously, rest in peace.
Yeah, now we're going to just start listening to Linkin Park for the rest of the day.
Oh, God. 3 songs and I'm out.
Flashbacks.
But speaking of darkness, what I was trying to ever so subtly segue into was Last of Us Part 2.
Ah.
Or Last of Us 2. I think they dropped the Part 2.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly, but I know it was Part 2 originally in the original trailer where we saw adult Ellie and Joel, but this time I think it was just 2. Mm-hmm. Which I'm perfectly fine with either way.
Either way, it's I want to get it right. But they showed off basically this really. Do you want to try and describe it? Because I'm worried.
It's a disembowelment, lynching, potential murder. Sequence of murders, I should say.
Yeah, that probably sums it up better than I could, because I was going to probably focus too much on the disembowelment. Yeah, it's one of those things that can be hard.
That was the first shocking sight that you see in the video. You just see people being dragged. That's not really unusual, especially considering the game that we found out it was based upon. But once they pan up and you see a hanging body that has been about, you realize that this is not something that we were expecting to see without some kind of warning, because there was no warning beforehand to tell you this is for mature audiences.
Nope. Yeah, they got into some flack for that, and
Yeah.
it's understandable why. I mean, like I said, there's been some really dark imagery at this particular conference, which happens, especially with the gamer advertising. But man, it's understandable though, because Last of Us really is a freaking dark game.
Yeah, but my only problem is I've seen some of the backlash, especially when it comes to articles on gaming websites, that doesn't particularly talk about the violence as the be-all, end-all, in the sense that they're saying, oh man, it was so disturbing, it was so disgusting. They say it in the terms of the realm of the universe where, oh, we didn't get to see what these characters meant, and all you're trying to sell us is violence, which I don't get the understanding, because they act like we were supposed to be told exactly who these people are, what their relations to, or if at all, with Joel and Ellie, and all these things in this trailer, whereas really the trailer tried to emphasize just how much darker the universe is in this game compared to the first one.
Which is saying something, because again, I'm gonna throw out a small spoiler for the first Last of Us. So if you haven't played it yet, this is going to be covering about the first 10 minutes of the game. In about the first 10 minutes or so, a young girl gets shot and dies in her father's arms.
Yeah.
And that kind of sets the tone for that game.
Very much so. Which I played it going in blind. Like, outside of a few articles that I read, but no reviews or anything, had no idea that was going to be the opening sequence. And it really took my breath away. Like, that was essentially The Last of Us in a nutshell. It just takes your breath away.
Yeah. Oh, man, you need to kind of just, every once in a while, go stroke something soft, hug a kitten, just
be as gentle as possible, and just find your happy place.
At the risk of a small tangent, in a D&D campaign I recently ran for my nephews,
okay,
I created a puppy room, which this criminal organization uses to turn people into puppies so they can just frolic for a while and be happy. I have never wanted something more than that. Like, I'm probably going to need to invent one of those for Last of Us 2 when it comes out, because, like I said, if this is what they're building on, I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic because I really like the first one, even despite how dark it was. Yeah, it's one of those things they wanted to warn you how dark it was, but at the same time, that can be an awkward thing to build your trailer on.
Right.
So there's two other games off the top of my head I wanted to talk about. Do you want to throw in with another one before I go to those?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, well, one of the ones is Marvel's Spider-Man. It's important that we know it's Marvel's Spider-Man.
Right.
Which we got more footage. Man, if the web slinging ends up being as smooth as they showed us, oh, I'm so in. Yeah,
this is definitely going to be the Spider-Man game if it turns out as well as it's looking right now.
Yeah, because one of the ones that people always talk about, which I don't have a lot of memory for, was Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, on the PS2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because everyone says, like, just because it was really good PS2 open world, and it was the web slinging was apparently really good.
It was. I actually do remember I rented it. I never bought it. I rented, and it was a really good game. But like I said, I don't have that love for it as much, I think, as a lot of other people do, because I didn't have that much time with it. So
naturally, yeah, I don't remember too much of it. I played it at a friend's house, I think, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I've done that with some other games, which I've not been terribly impressed with. in this case, though, I'm like, I just don't remember.
Right.
But no, yeah, it sounds like it was good. And if this builds on that, that'll be great. Plus, we got some interesting villains. I don't recall too much from this. Like, I had to remind myself who the hell some of these characters were. Did I lose you?
No, I was just waiting for you because I saw the quality.
Oh no, that was kind of the end of my thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just we got some interesting new villains, and then I don't know what to say because, like I said, I'm actually blanking on who the hell that guy is now. Even as I wrote it down earlier. This is the worst. But I thought I was prepared, but no, I am the fool.
Yeah, I was waiting for those villains to just start name dropping that time. It was like, here we go.
Yeah.
Here we go. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
No, that's instead I'm just,
Just mine just went out completely.
Yeah.
She pulled an Aqua on this one.
Oh, okay, it's Mr. Negative.
Okay.
Because I kept thinking, what the heck was the guy I kept confusing for? Now I can't There's another Marvel villain that kind of has a similar thing, and I was confusing him with someone else.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the plot is that he's dealing with mysterious philanthropist or whatever who is known as Mr. Negative. And so he's definitely a different villain from what we're used to. But Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin's also in it. So
right. I think we knew that from the original trailers that he was going to be a part of.
Yeah. It was just enforcing the fact that wasn't a bait and switch. That Kingpin is definitely still. Yeah, these new villains. Sorry, I had to open up a text thing because I blanked on the guy's name. Because I think there's a guy called Counterman or something like that. He's meant to be like a nega dude.
It sounds like something from Mega Man. Like that.
I know. Yeah. Well, okay. You know what? I'm gonna leave all of what happened in just so I can tell people about this character that they may not know about. So there's a Spider-Man villain called Stilt-Man, which is already a really kind of dumb villain.
Wow.
But it gets better. Oh, it gets better. So there's a female counterpart to Stilt-Man.
But all I could think about is Hermes off of Futurama when you said Stilt-Man. Like that's the image I have of this villain now.
If on the off chance that a game producer can put this into the game, even though I know it's coming out in like 6 months, so probably not. If you can fit in the female Stilt-Man, also known as Lady Stilt-Man, into the game, I will be the happiest man. Hashtag Lady Stilts.
Lady Stilt-Man.
Yep.
Like literally, they sat down and thought of, okay, this is a character. We got to have a female equivalent of Stilt-Man. We have to come up with something that's really good, but doesn't take away the fact that we have to know it's Stilt-Man, the female equivalent of Stilt-Man.
Yep.
So they decide that Lady Stilt-Man, not Stilt-Woman, not the Lady Stilt, but Lady Stilt-Man was an appropriate name for this character.
Absolutely. It's, they decided that was the one. And I just sent you a picture because I found one while you were laughing.
Wow.
Everybody Googled Lady Stilt-Man.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm not sure if I can put that in the video version without, and even then, audio listeners. But sorry for the tangent, folks, but that's a Spider-Man fact I just had to make sure people knew.
This is the Spider-Man equivalent of Poochie. Like, this is...
Yep.
Wow.
Well, no. It still has to be a character that, everybody loves and constantly is asking about. That's how you go full Poochie.
That's how you go full Poochie. Okay.
Yeah, but so assuming Marvel's Spider-Man, the 2018 video game, does well, I can't wait for the sequel where he fights Lady Stilt-Man.
Lady Stilt-Man's coming for revenge. I know it's happening.
Yep. But the last game I wanted to quickly touch on, we didn't get too much of this, but it does look interesting. The Hong Kong Massacre. Did you see some of that?
Yeah, it's more of a hotline. What is it? Hotline Miami?
Hotline Miami, not Hotel Miami.
Yeah, I don't know why I want to say Hotel Miami so badly.
That's something very different.
Yeah. No, it's a top-down shooter, Hotline Miami style, but set in Hong Kong, and seems like it's going to give us a little bit of what Sleeping Dogs gave us, but completely different. Running gun, crazy. Yeah,
it's more John Woo gun.
Yeah.
Twin gun diving. I hope there's a Dove power-up mode or something like that. That'd be awesome.
That'd be so awesome.
Get that Chow Yun Fat cameo.
Hey, if they can get Aloy in for Monster Hunter, why can't we have that for Hong Kong Massacre?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that was one of the other ones that was at Paris, just to acknowledge Monster Hunter World. They did show that off. Just don't really have anything else to add.
I mean, other than Aloy is going to be a part of the game like that, so that tied into Horizon's DLC that's kind of becoming almost similar to Uncharted: The Lost Legacy, where it feels like it's a whole standalone game with this established world. So Looking pretty good. I mean, I enjoyed Horizon Zero Dawn. I don't think I enjoyed it as much as a lot of other people did for some reason. It's just one of those things.
I just never fully got into the bow mechanics myself. I don't know about you.
It was okay on that. Like I got used to it, but it just always felt a little weird. And the melee, the same thing, just felt a little stiff and rigid.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I enjoyed the game.
Yeah,
I thought it was pretty good.
Pretty good story. Pretty good universe. I mean, like, yeah, there's just because you didn't like some parts of it doesn't mean it's bad for you.
It hit all the check marks. Pretty much all the boxes were checked off to make it a really good game. But I think, just me personally, a lot of the high praise that it got very early on, and still even to this day, I just don't see it.
Well, it is also a new franchise, and to be so good out of the big gate, especially when we get a bunch of franchises these days where it seems like the first entry is kind of lousy, and then the second one ends up being what the first game should have been.
Right, that's very true.
That's happened. I want to say at least 3 times. I don't want to get into too many specifics because that could lead to a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
But yeah, so in general, the Paris Game Show, Sony's presentation, since it's the one we're talking about, it kind of stole the show for us. We don't want to be Sony ponies, as it were, but that's just how we feel, and it is partially because they brought it.
And it's amazing that they did it on the same time as the release of the Xbox One X.
Yeah, that was probably the most effective way to kind of distract from that without actually sabotaging their sales.
Exactly. Yeah, they really came up with the software this time, and they delivered. I really have to say I'm mighty excited about the next couple of years, especially with all the rumors of a PS5 coming out in 2020 at the earliest. I think the PS4 and this generation still got a lot left to show, which I think a lot of people didn't expect from it, considering we were so remaster heavy for a while. Well,
we got a couple of those too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Hey, I'm telling you, for day one, I'm getting Shadow of the Colossus. I don't care. I got it on PS2. I got it on PS3. I do not care. I want to play this game again. I love that game.
Oh yeah, and it does look like they rebuilt Shadow of the Colossus from the ground up for the HD remake. Yeah. So that's cool. I think on that note, we're gonna move on to television. So it's tricky because we're in the middle of a new season of television in North America. So we've got a lot of incomplete series, and after we talked about the full season of Rick and Morty Season 3, it was like, do we want to talk about something that's halfway through? And then I got the idea to tell James about an anime called KonoSuba.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's not the full name, but if I go any further, I'm going to totally botch it.
We're going to butcher it if we try, if we even try.
The rough translation is God's blessing on this wonderful world.
Yeah.
It's something like that. And it's KonoSuba, which is pretty much what they call it for short as well. So, James, you want to tell me what you were expecting going into this?
Well, the thing about it, you pretty much told me it was kind of a play on the RPG world. They were taking a concept of video games and turning it into anime. What I didn't expect was this hilarious comedy that starts off hilarious. Like, I really did not expect it to be this grounded in comedy. And just to give you a hint of what I mean, one of the main characters, Kazuma, he's pretty much the male lead of the whole story.
Yeah.
The way he comes into the world of this RPG fantasy land is so embarrassing that people laugh at him when he has a fatal moment in his life. And not just random people, his family, doctors that are supposed to be helping him, are laughing at this dude because of how embarrassing, in their words, in their eyes, his fatal encounter was. And that set the tone for the entire series. And Ares' breasts are padded.
You can't just say that without explaining who Ares is.
Ares' breasts are padded.
Oh, man. So, yeah. KonoSuba is essentially a deconstruction of RPG tropes, fantasy adventure tropes, all of that. I mean, most ostensibly RPGs, because he supposedly goes to he dies and he gets sent to an RPG world. So it's, but unless you think it's going to be something like Sword Art Online, it's not.
Right.
It's really not. Because the game mechanics are basically not there except for the character cards and the fact that they level up and stuff. Like, they talk about it, but it's sort of online there.
On the series too, they really don't emphasize it too much later on after they get past that point.
Yeah, it's just every once in a while they kind of mention skill points and buffing and whatnot. in general, it's not much of a thing, and it's the real world very much applies, but at the same time, RPG mechanics very much apply. For example, because they're adventurers, it's hard to get work, so they're essentially...
And low-level adventurers, no less. Like, they're just starting out, so all of the big jobs and the more important jobs and the more lucrative jobs are handed out to people that actually have experience, where the trio that becomes, and then a quartet that it turns into, are left with these low-level jobs, including chasing giant frogs.
No, that's not low-level, though. Those frogs are actually kind of tough.
Right, but I mean, it's considered a low-level job, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's...
So, like you said, the frogs are incredibly tough, though, especially when we consider just how pathetic our people are that we're rooting for.
Yep. Yeah, because to explain the main cast a bit, it follows Kazuma, who dies and comes to the world, so he's got the real-world connection, and he ends up dragging along the goddess...
Before you speak on... Before you conclude with Cosmo, you got to remember too. This guy's been a shut-in.
Oh yeah,
his entire life.
That's right. We should mention he's what anime people would call a NEET.
Yes.
Which roughly is basically a shut-in gamer type or otaku type. If I remember right, otaku in Japan is kind of looked down upon because it means
very much so.
Yeah.
Yes.
And NEET's like a step below even that.
Right. Then you're just on the world and bringing nothing to it.
You're essentially
a terrible person. You're right. You're a terrible, terrible person.
Like you're literally a garbage person. Not like
You're figuratively a garbage person. You're a sponge on society. That's what you are.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some people use garbage person to just kind of mean like a person who just insults people and whatever. Well, Kazuma does that. I mean, like he's garbage in that he's the type of thing society should throw away, but can't. Is what I'm trying to get at. But yeah, and then he meets Aqua, a goddess of, unsurprisingly, water, who also handles sending dead people to this RPG world, and she ends up coming along with him.
He pulls a whole switcheroo on her.
We don't want to give away exactly how she ends up going with him.
Yeah, but it's hilarious the way he does it. It's very cool. It's a great moment.
And the whole scene is just hilarious.
Yes.
But it's kind of foregone conclusion that she's there since she's such a prominent part of the advertising and whatnot. And good God, her Japanese voice actress is so good.
She's absolutely incredible.
Because she's just delightfully whiny, incredibly selfish, and she is both competent and terrible.
Yeah, I think it's just the pure fact she's lazy. She's a goddess, so of course she feels like everything should be handed to her. And she's so lazy that it causes a lot of problems. Like, that's one of her bigger things, that she's just pure unadulterated laziness.
And she's genuinely one of the dumbest people in the world.
Yeah, not just saying, because we see how she acts. And they literally tell you that her stat for intelligence is incredibly low.
And it will never rise.
It'll never rise.
Which is one of my favorite little facts about her. It's great. Yeah, it's great though. So she's a goddess of water. And she ends up being a healer. There's a lot of just
a very selective healer, no less.
Yeah. She does it when she feels like it.
Yeah, whenever she feels like it.
But she's powerful enough she can defy death, which is of course important because.
And of course, she can show nature's beauty.
Oh yes, nature's beauty. The most useless.
It's like a party trick. It's literally like a party trick that she used skill points on.
Yep. What's funny is I think it's like 5 skill points, and in the world, skill points are pretty rare. Like some people only get 1 per level.
It's like playing WWE 2K18's career mode.
Exactly. That's tie-in. But yeah, so he gets stuck with this really dumb, really lazy healing goddess. And of course, no one believes that she's a goddess, so they're just like, she's crazy.
Why would they? She's just useless.
Yeah. And then they meet Megumin, sorry. I nearly pronounced it wrong. Yeah. A 14-year-old arch wizard who has the ability to control the most devastating magic in the world, explosion.
Right.
It's literally just called explosion.
Yeah, it's explosion spell. That's what it's called.
And by the way, she's a very popular character for a number of reasons, including she's got an outfit that's like very cosplay friendly because it's like giant witch hat, big staff, cape, cute little red dress. I think she's got like one glove, if I'm not mistaken.
And don't forget the eye patch.
Oh yeah, she does have the eye patch that she occasionally wears, which seals in her magic power. That's not true at all.
I was gonna wait for you to say that.
Yeah. No, she just wears it to look cool.
Yeah, it's just cool.
Yeah, she's a member of a group of humans, or human-ish people called the Crimson Mages, and they function very much on the rule of cool. And yeah, she's got the explosion spell and nothing else. Yeah.
But tell them the key point of her powers that makes her so interesting, because this is something I've always thought about when it comes to RPGs, and like if this was real life, how would you react if you use like a devastating spell?
Yeah, in this case, because the mana or magic cost of the spell is so great, it causes her to lose all her energy and just pass out. She just flops over.
But she's always so happy. She says it feels so good to do it. So yeah, it's like having a great workout.
She's literally on the brink of death.
Yes,
because like they've translated this into a free kind of cheaply made RPG they released with some of the Blu-rays in Japan. If you see it executed, when she uses it, her health drops to 1. She drops to 1 hit point when that happens. It's pretty great. So yeah, she's got one. She's like a more useless version of the character from Slayers. I think her name is Lena. Yeah, she's like a more useless Lena. Which of course, like all the characters can very much be archetypes. Because I mean, Aqua, the goddess getting kidnapped, that's oh my goddess, and then being stuck with the player, that's also very much what's that anime called? Is it wrong to pick up girls in a dungeon?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, except that goddess likes her charge.
Right.
Aqua does not like Kazuma. And then the final member of the quartet, we've been spending a lot of time on them, but we do need to explain all the main characters.
Yeah, because they're so important to just tell you how ridiculous this whole thing is.
Yeah. The final member is this blonde Amazonian woman named Darkness.
Yes, that's her. That's not a translation. Her name is literally Darkness throughout the majority of the series, even though we find out what her real name is, too, which is a cause for hilarity as well.
Yeah, it's not a great name. It's really not.
It's really not.
Well, it's funny too. Like I don't want to give away the name just because it's a funny thing.
Yeah. No, once you hear it, you'll get it. Like I love it. It's great stuff.
But it's a really weird name. Period.
Yeah.
Like and they only make fun of one part of it in particular.
Right.
But it feels like they could have made fun of all of it. That's all I'm saying.
She has enough to make fun of, though. That's the thing. Yeah.
So the character herself, she's a crusader, so she's a knight class.
Right.
In this case, crusaders, like from my experience anyway, are kind of like the paladin types, the sword and shield types. In this case, she wields a two-handed sword and she's got heavy armor. But she freely admits this very early on. She hasn't even taken two-handed sword training.
Right.
So she literally is underskilled to use her weapon.
Right.
Which means, and she's never invested in her accuracy at all, which means she basically can't even hit stationary targets half the time.
No, not basically. She cannot. We've seen this during the show. During the show, she cannot actually hit a stationary target.
Yeah. There's only been a couple times she's been able to hit stuff, and it's...
Right.
I think in one case...
She's pretty much, what she's pretty much used for as a human shield.
Yep.
Which she is happy to do so.
Yeah. Like, everyone's kind of a certain degree of pervert. Like, Aqua's is probably the hardest to kind of nail down. But, like, Kazuma's,
he's more like a drunk. Like, she's just happy to get wasted and drink.
Yeah, that's
pretty her vice.
Yeah, and Kazuma, he likes the ladies, but of course he's not very good at it. Even that he makes kind of sexual harassment stuff, although
it gets pretty perverted later on thanks to a skill that he learns. But I definitely don't want to spoil that for people.
That's pretty great, because I will say this. One of Kazuma's in-game advantages is he has supernaturally high luck.
Right.
Which is hilarious when you can think about the fact that he's like a teenager who died. I don't know how lucky that is. But they even say that luck is kind of a useless skill, although we learned that's not entirely the case.
Yeah, especially with him. Like he needs as much luck as he can get when it comes to that.
And then, like we said, Megumin, She loves shooting off explosions. She's addicted to it, and it gives her pleasure. There's a couple times where she basically starts groping her staff sexually.
Yes, she does. Yeah, it was actually quite. It's very disturbing when you consider that this is an underage girl.
Yeah, and to be fair, in this universe, 16 is considered adult age in the universe that they're in, but of course she's still 14, so it's weird.
Exactly, she's still underage, so.
Which is why I'm kind of glad they toned that down later.
Yeah.
She still takes obvious pleasure in it, but they don't make it as sexual, which I'm like, that's
it's pretty obvious that they kind of learned from their mistakes on that one.
Yeah. But Darkness, she's a masochist.
Darkness is of age, and they let you know it.
Oh yeah, she's 18. And she's got a big pair of boobs that end up being juggled quite a bit while weird, happy, vaguely orgasmic music plays.
Yes. And as you said, she is a masochist.
Yep. So she loves getting the crap beaten out of her.
Yep. And as we noticed, she's pretty much a human shield because she has no accuracy. So getting beat up a lot during the series is pretty much her best thing to happen to her.
Yep. What's also hilarious because she not only enjoys being beaten up, she also enjoys being humiliated.
Yeah. She likes to be degraded, which actually led to one of my favorite parts of the entire series. It was full of fan service, which a lot of this anime is full of. There's a lot of fan service in this thing.
Yeah, but thankfully...
If juggling boobs doesn't tell you there's some fan service in it, I don't know what will.
Well, here's the thing. To quickly touch on the fan service before we get into your favorite bit... Okay. Most of the fan service kind of makes sense because they tied it to the characters, and it actually ends up leading to some pretty amazing jokes.
Yeah.
But there are a few times where it's just butt shot for no reason.
Right. Early in the series, when they introduce Aqua, there's a part where you just see the camera following her butt.
Yeah.
And there really was no reason for that one.
No,
because it never led to anything.
I know that's probably one of the more annoying things.
Right.
But do you want to kind of hint at what your favorite scene is? I think I know which one it is.
I want to see if you're thinking what I'm thinking. It's a scene midway through or so where they had the opportunity to pretty much go to a spa that's run by succubuses and people of ill repute. And and Kazuma kind of becomes a man in his mind. He really thinks he feels like he can really tell women what they need to hear and what they need to do, because in his mind, this is all a dream. And this was specifically made to suit his needs. Unfortunately, it doesn't pan out that way, and he has an encounter with Darkness that plays into her wants and needs as a magicist, that she enjoys being humiliated verbally.
Yep.
And it's one of the most hilarious yet awkward moments I think I've ever seen, really, in an anime that's supposed to be just a comedy. It's so disturbing yet so hilarious that I knew this is probably one of the best things I've seen all year. No joke.
Mm-hmm. What it comes down to is they almost kind of do the anti-climax or the anti-joke thing, where they build up to something big and then it doesn't really happen.
Right.
Every once in a while they do have an epic fight, but even then it's still a ridiculous epic fight.
It's just a slap fest. It's like Three Stooges slap fest. It's nothing ever serious.
Yeah. I mean, there's two major fights in the first season, and both of them, well, they do have their epic moments, to be sure, are still mostly hilarious.
It's still rooted in comedy. It's still ridiculous. And the fact that, I love the fact that the main villain, which we have not seen in the anime, it's just simply the Devil King. It's the most generic name.
Well, yeah, because one of the most popular RPG franchises in Japan is Dragon Quest.
Dragon Quest, right.
And that's one that tends to be referenced in Japanese pop culture even more than Final Fantasy does.
Exactly.
I think it's because there's so many universal constants in the Dragon Quest games, and the Demon King or the Dragon Lord or whatever, that's one of the more common things. You see that there's a bunch of other anime like this that also kind of do similar things, The Great Hero Yoshihiko, which is a live-action comedy that kind of does the same thing, and even has licensed Dragon Quest stuff in it, which that was pretty funny.
Right.
They've done this type of stuff before in Japan, but it's really well done in KonoSuba. Yeah. And as of this recording, there are 12 Japanese light novels, which is the original. I was about to say it's the original source. Kind of not true, because this started as a web novel. Like that was its very original source, was a web novel series.
Mm-hmm.
Then it became light novels, which took the web novel plot, expanded it, changed it. Like I think the web novel only would have covered about 8 volumes. Like I said, they're on 12 of the light novel, and they still got, I think,
It's
2
still
more
going.
volumes at least.
Yeah, it's still going.
Yep. Yeah, from what I can tell, volume 13 probably won't end it. I can't remember how many have been translated into English so far. My roommate has at least 3 of them, and that's just the light novels. There's also a manga, and like you said, there's an anime. There's a total of 22 episodes, 2 10-episode seasons, plus an OVA for each season. OVAs are kind of pointless, but they're still entertaining.
Yeah, the second one's definitely the best. If you have to see one, definitely see the second one.
Yeah, the second one, the first one you can kind of skip over because it's
got a good ending, but yeah.
There's about 10
second
minutes.
One's overall.
There's about 10 minutes of fan service that doesn't really add much, although there's a couple
Right.
of solid jokes in there all the same. But yeah, no, it's a very good series, and I do recommend it. What I kind of love too is animation quality is like stylistically both good and bad,
Right.
and I'm pretty sure it's done intentionally.
Yeah. One thing I noticed, especially later on, I think in the second OVA, there was a early moment where Kazuma's at a bar and the hostess comes up to him, and I just noticed like her breasts are like really, really droopy, and she walks off and it looks like she has a limp, but character-wise, like from her facial features, she looks normal and attractive for the characters. But like they give all of these characters some type of imperfection, even when it comes to like the enormous breasts, like they're really droopy. So it's like just the craziest thing to me. Like they did an animation where not everything is perfect, but everything really looks good.
Yeah. And the comedic timing is just phenomenal.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's one scene where Aqua has a nervous breakdown during a battle when they're trying to complete a quest. And I love the point where they hit the pause to kind of like be the intermission, the commercial break.
Oh yeah.
And her face is just priceless.
To explain that joke real quick, because it's in a game world, sometimes, not every episode, where there's like an act break to, do a commercial or whatever, they'll suddenly like freeze frame and it'll say paused on the screen. Because again, it's like a video game world. They don't do that often, but whenever they do it, it's usually on a very funny expression, usually on Aqua's face.
Yeah, it's usually Aqua's face.
It's just like someone's like, I'm going to take pleasure in watching her suffer.
Yeah, just for a little while.
Yeah. We never explained what Eris's chest is padded, but let's just move on.
I will leave that for people that watch it because it's a running joke that I was shocked when it happened, but I love it so much because it's ridiculous.
And apparently, it's legitimately true.
Yeah, it's not it's not just two girls being mean to each other.
Nope,
not a bit.
But to start to wrap things up, we wanted to talk a bit about the movie we both saw. You did see it, right? I'm not.
Oh yeah.
Imagining
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I said that. I'm like.
Yeah. No, okay.
I was pretty sure you said you saw it, and I know I saw it. Yeah. We saw Blade Runner 2049.
Yeah.
Which was, I guess I should say, surprisingly good, but I'm not really that surprised, honestly.
I think it's one of those things where it's kind of like for video game players, it's the Duke Nukem Forever feeling, where you see it's something that's been made for so long that you don't expect it to be that good, and usually it turns out not to be very good. But this is the case where it turned out very well. I was pleasantly surprised.
Well, I think it helps that Denis Villeneuve, I believe that's how that's pronounced, I'm probably wrong, the guy who directed Sicario and Arrival did this movie. Both those movies are very good. Like, I personally didn't like Sicario as much as I liked Arrival, but I know some people that royally disagree with me, and I find it hard not to blame them. I'm just really picky about a couple things that were left in that movie. Let me put it that way.
That's a fair enough situation.
Yeah. I'm probably wrong, honestly. I think legitimately one of the reasons I hate the scenes is I don't want to get into it.
Yeah,
but yeah,
we're talking about Blade Runner.
Let's talk about Blade Runner. Let's not talk about what I hate about Sicario. So we got the sequel 35 years after the original.
The original, exactly,
and set 30 years after the original, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because the first one, I was pretty sure the original was set in 2019. which is hilarious. 2 more years.
Isn't that amazing when you think about things like this?
Yep. I know. It's like, if I ever do a future sci-fi, it's either going to be the not too distant future where it's like everything is the same except for one new tech, or it's going to be at least 200 years, just to hedge my bets.
Still haven't had that Jetsons universe yet.
Yep. The magnificent far off year of 2002. Nope. That's sure not happening. So in this case, we get Blade Runner 2049, which is the long overdue sequel to Blade Runner, the 1982 Ridley Scott classic. It's
cult
tricky.
Classic at least. It's at least a cult classic.
Yeah, it's what's tricky because there's 9 different versions of the film with 3 primarily accepted versions. You got the theatrical cut, which has the really terrible narration from Harrison Ford, and cuts out a few scenes that people kind of thought were important. We got the director's cut, which was, what was that, 92?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, which added a bunch of stuff in and cut out the narration, but it was kind of too long.
Yeah. Which I think a lot of people kind of complain about this one as well.
Yeah. I'm sure they'll probably feel it a little too long.
Yeah.
But the final cut is the one. If you haven't seen the original Blade Runner, look for the final cut. That's probably the one to watch.
I believe that's the one that's on Blu-ray now, isn't it?
I believe so. Well, I think the Blu-ray has all 3 versions.
Okay.
Which is a little excessive, but fair enough.
Right, hey, you're giving you a choice. You put your money down. Yeah.
So in this case, Blade Runner 2049, it primarily focuses on Ryan Gosling.
Right, who plays K.
Yeah, Agent K, or Detective K, which he's not a Men in Black.
Yeah.
I've had to explain that so many times. So he hunts aliens? Like, no. He's a Blade Runner. Yeah, and okay, we're gonna give away one small spoiler that is said within like the first 5 minutes of the film, just because it's kind of important to the plot. So I'm just gonna say it. K is a replicant who hunts other replicants, and for those who aren't familiar with Blade Runner, replicants are sort of these artificial humans that are android-ish. But I don't think they're actually 100% androids, if I'm not mistaken.
Right, they're kind of starting to grow more human emotions, feelings, understanding, and they haven't gone to the point where they are so self-aware that they lose. Some of them do, though. Like they kind of become completely self-aware, and that's really who they're hunting. Yeah,
but I mean, like, they're organic is the big thing.
Right, that's true.
It's not like they've got like metal bits on the inside or whatever.
Right.
Which is pretty important
which plays a big role into Jared Leto's character too.
Yeah, because there's a lot of stuff going on with like DNA and whatnot, and at the same time you've got cybernetic implants and all this other stuff going on. And at its basic, it's another mystery which focuses a lot on new characters, but does touch on some of the old characters. Like, it's well known that Harrison Ford's in it, and he does show up eventually. That's probably one of the big things to warn you, is that Harrison Ford doesn't show up for a while.
Well, I was about to say, you had to really sit down, pack a lunch, if you were waiting specifically for Harrison Ford to show up in the movie, because it's a wait. It's a long wait, but it's well worth it.
Oh, absolutely. Once he finally shows up, he's great.
Yeah. And it really makes it feel like it came all together perfectly.
And in general, this film, like, it visually is very impressive. It
very much so.
Continuity-wise, it really does feel like it's been about 30 years since the original.
It does. Like, that was one of the biggest things I noticed if you look at the environment and the universe that they tried to set up in the first one, which they only showed a little bit for obvious reasons, that they expanded upon in this one in 2049, that made it just feel so much more advanced. Like, they told you in the original Blade Runner. This one they showed you, and it just felt like this was a huge advancement in the world that they just only gave you a brief glimpse of in the first movie.
Yeah, and this one we got to see more of it. And what's kind of funny is, they added some more product placement that I don't think was in the first. I don't remember Coke and Sony being that big in the original Blade Runner.
Yeah, I don't at all.
And I'm like, you know what? It's a future state. There's going to be ads everywhere.
It's 2017.
It honestly wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
It really wasn't. Like, there's obviously going to be some ads. And what's kind of great is but the ads that got the most focus were the ones for in-universe companies that, were relevant to the plot.
Right.
which was
You
good.
remember that's how it used to be back in the day, especially like late 80s, early 90s. We wouldn't have product placement of actual stuff. We would just have fake product placement of stuff that you knew exactly what they were talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then we get product placement.
It's no Krispy Kremes, that's for sure.
Oh my god. For those who don't know, that's from the Power Rangers 2017 movie, which is basically Krispy Kreme the movie guest starring the Power Rangers. It's one thing I didn't like about that movie.
Yeah.
But back to the movie we're talking about. Yeah, what's kind of great is they included, and this was in the original Blade Runner, Atari Corp.
Yeah.
So at one point they go right by a giant Atari logo.
Yeah, that was so incredible.
Even though obviously come the year 2017, Atari isn't quite the powerhouse it was in 1982.
But in this universe,
yeah,
it's still thriving, which is
that's one of the great things. It's like they have tech that looks both inferior to our modern tech, but like is built upon their tech, and they still have some really advanced stuff of their own. Like they've got, they've still got the phone booths with the video calls and stuff like that. So like the communications equipment seems a little inferior, but at the same time, they've got holographic technology that totally outstrips what we've got, and they've still got those fancy light up umbrellas that are now even more sleek.
Yeah, like it's always fun, like playing a Fallout or watching something like Futurama, and you see like how limited the mindset was at the time when it came to, okay, this is what it's going to be when the future happens, and this is what's going to stick around when it does. And like with this, it's funny that they've actually advanced into the future. They've seen these evolutions, yet they made sure to keep it kind of real to the subject matter, in that certain aspects of technology wouldn't evolve as much as they actually did in real life.
Yeah, it's something else. But yeah, we can't really talk about the plot, which is why we spent.
Yeah, unlike KonoSuba, it's like we can't really talk too much about the plot because there's so much stuff to spoil.
Yeah, and we can't get too much in the characters, because if we even talk about the journeys some of the characters go on, to put it simply, Kay goes on a journey I absolutely love, because it's something I think most human beings, which is why it's so great. I think of replicants going through this in this movie. Right. Human beings kind of experience. And I don't want to give away exactly the nature of it because it is kind of a spoiler, but it's a very important journey that I think most people would appreciate. And the fact that we see a replicant go through it and the emotional impact that starts to, because replicants ideally aren't supposed to be that emotional, because then they become dangerous because they can't handle complex emotions.
Exactly.
And which is one of the reasons why casting Ryan Gosling was so good, because Ryan Gosling, he can usually be very subtle. Mm-hmm. He, to the point where he can seem wooden, and to a degree, he probably can be when he's not giving his best. He can totally come off as wooden. I'll give it that. In this case, he's being purposely stoic, purposely emotionless, and then you slowly see him break down over the course of the movie.
Exactly.
And it's so well done.
It's done so well. I cannot give enough credit for that, because I was expecting it to be kind of like one of those jarring instances, like he had this one moment and then everything kind of strips apart from his personality. But it was such a gradual, natural change that worked so immaculately well that it really, to me, took the whole movie to another level.
Absolutely. There's one scene in particular where he slowly breaks down over the course of the scene, and while he kind of looks silly at parts because he like his face is turned, but you understand why when you think about what's going through the character's mind at that point. Mm-hmm. It's really something. It's nice to get a reminder that he's not just a man with a sexy bod. Like shout out to one of the many great Canadian Ryans. You weren't expecting me to say that, did you?
No, I was not. I was not ready for that at all.
Come on, though. I mean, if there's a movie
I'm with you. I'm with you on that. I just was not expecting that at all.
Hey, I'm perfectly comfortable in my heterosexuality to comment that Ryan Gosling is a handsome man.
Oh man, that's too much. Yeah. I was not expecting that. That was great. That was perfect. Absolutely perfect.
But no, he's really good in this. The female lead, I don't want to give too much away with the female lead, but she's really good.
Yeah, Joy.
Yeah, and then Harrison Ford, when he finally shows up, he's pretty great. Like he probably gives more of a damn than this that he did in several other movies.
Yeah, he really, you could tell he was really working to make sure that he left a lasting impression.
Yeah, if it wasn't for the fact that he did seem to really try in Star Wars, I would say it's probably the most he's cared since Anchorman 2.
Probably.
And even then in Anchorman 2, he kind of didn't care, but it was just...
Yeah, his
delivery was still amazing.
Yeah, I think it was just natural talent came out to shine on that one.
Yeah, he's still probably... He's just like, all right, I'm going to say this ridiculous phrase as straight as I can and then go collect my paycheck.
Yeah.
But no, it's really good. It's really well done. Definitely go see it if you can, if you haven't yet. I think it's probably going to leave theaters soon, but if it hasn't already, but it's very good.
No, it's still in theaters now. Like, I typed it in, and it's already showing dates and times, so it's still out.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Because I think it made... How much money did it make? I haven't checked.
I know it's made over the budget, but not that much more. I think it was like a little bit over 200 mil.
Well, wasn't the original a famous bomb or something like that?
Yeah, it really was.
Yeah, it did. It's made about $230 million on a $150 million budget, so not great. But I mean, this is essentially a big budget art film,
right?
So, which is kind of the problem.
All pretty much really a cult classic. That came out a long time ago for a lot of people. Yeah,
this is actually pretty close to how Serenity, the movie based on the Firefly TV series.
Yeah.
Proportionally, it's probably about the same, or in that neighborhood anyway. No, it was really good. It's really good. Like the one problem is it is long, and they probably could have cut down a couple scenes.
Yeah, they could have.
There's a scene where two people. Well, okay, one guy's stalking another guy in a abandoned area. And this isn't really much of a spoiler. There's a scene where one guy's hunting another guy in a place that has holographic bands, and the holographic bands keep flickering. That scene in particular probably dragged on too long.
Yeah, it went on a little too long. Like, it was amazing to watch at the beginning, and then after about the 2-minute mark, yeah, it kind of fell apart.
Yeah, it's
I mean, just from an attention span perspective, you know.
Well, because I to sound kind of vaguely film scholarly for a moment, if I may, there's a famous scene in North by Northwest where a character shows up at a cornfield and doesn't know someone's going to come to greet him, and he doesn't know if it's going to be someone to come and kill him, someone to come pick him up, etc. And he doesn't know what form this is going to take, so he constantly eyeballs everything that passes by, cars, bikes, whatever. And he's like, is that the person I'm waiting for? And so the tension builds, right? And part of it is the unknown. This scene doesn't quite work, I think, in the same way because we keep seeing the same things.
Right.
So there's nothing really new to further draw out the tension. It's just the character slowly moving towards where we have a pretty good idea where the other character is.
Exactly.
Which is why drawing out the scene for tension doesn't work as well as it does in that famous scene I just compared. Yeah.
Right, yeah, that was just totally unnecessary.
Yeah. And I think there's a couple other scenes. There's one scene that I didn't fully appreciate when it was going on, and then later on, when I realized what the emotional crux of the film was, I'm like, oh, never mind. That was probably worth it.
Okay.
I don't want to get it. It's an early on one in the rain.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, like at the time, that felt like it was going on too long, but then later on...
Yeah, like why is this being such a big focus?
And then you realize why, and you're like, okay... In retrospect, that they did probably need to do that. So it'll feel there are a couple scenes like that too, where it feels like it's going unnecessarily long into something.
Yeah, initially, and then once you see it play out overall, you understand exactly why it worked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so definitely go see it. Great movie. Really kind of hoping Gosling gets some acknowledgement for his performance.
Definitely, I hope he really does. Like, he deserves, especially like you said, when you're working with a character that is essentially robotic in nature at the beginning and really embraces almost a human aspect by the end and do it so naturally well. He really deserves a lot of credit for carrying that character and really making it feel natural.
Absolutely. No, I loved it so much. I was really happy when I left.
Yeah.
Yeah, just great. So on that note, I think we're going to wrap up this episode. Going for about an hour, and I'm pretty sure after that, people get sick of us.
They think we've been going on for 35 years now.
Oh, God. But how often can you say, boy, that movie that came out 35 years later was really worth it? We've had movies that come out 10 years later that haven't been worth it.
Right. That's a very good way to summarize it.
Yeah. Just saying, folks. Just saying. So, thank you for joining with me, James, on this emotional journey.
Oh yeah, it definitely was. It was some highs, some lows.
Yep.
And a lot of padding.
Well, Lady Stilt-Man. I'm just going to say that padding was worth it.
That was the high. It was Lady Stilt-Man.
Yeah. Again, look it up, folks. I'm not lying.
Oh, Lordy.